Cheers guys, Epyx911, welcome to the Elitist Geek and my Tech Ramble. This is where I talk about tech-worthy news events. Let's start with Gamestop. Gamestop is a store for those of you outside the US that, made their bread and butter basically renting video games. I believe they were originally called Electronics Boutique because up here in Canada we don't have GameStop, we just have EB Games, which in the States used to be the same thing. Then I think they became GameStop, but in Canada they retained the EB, something confusing like that. Anyways, in the news, it's been discovered that since about 2009, GameStop has been taking Xbox 360 units with the old RROD, which is the Red Ring of Death, which surely everybody on the planet has heard about by now. It's basically where your Xbox 360 unit pooches it, and you'll get an actual red ring lit up on the front of your console, indicating a hardware failure. For most people, this was the same as basically bricking the unit, and in essence, it became dead weight. So a lot of people basically returned them, made them back. Some people apparently took them to GameStop, and GameStop figured out, as Microsoft eventually did as well, that the issue was to do with heat, and I believe it was a chip coming loose. There were all kinds of tricks to work around the Red Ring of Death. Now, I myself never experienced the Red Ring of Death, but I have a lot of friends who have. There were towel tricks, literally, where people would tie towels around their fucking 360 to basically put pressure on the chip in question and push it closer, push it down to basically have the heat sink properties properly work. That's what it boiled down to. The chip wasn't able to dissipate the heat efficiently. That caused the hardware error and the resulting Red Ring of Death. So apparently they'd been repairing those and reselling them. Because again, most people, they'd assume that their units were fucking bricked. Bring them to GameStop, get $80, think they're, getting a decent deal, and then GameStop would go around, turn it back around and sell those units back to the public. Do I have a problem with that? Not really, providing it worked. And that's still out. That's a question to still be answered. How many people purchased refurbished units that had the Red Ring of Death that didn't, or that experienced re-failure rates? We don't know. Was it a huge chunk of people? Who knows? And I'm sure there's going to be more of that story coming out. In other news, in Brazil, this one's interesting because Brazil has a significant population. It's the largest South American country, not only in terms of size, but in terms of demographic, in terms of people. There are over 150 million people in Brazil. And while it's true that they don't have as large a middle class as the US, or per capita like, another country like Canada, for example, they still have a significant middle class. And that's, I would say in the tens of millions. Represents a huge market for Nintendo. And, well, what's happening? Nintendo is pulling out because you see, Brazil has a super high tariff rate. What's super high, you ask? Well, imagine fucking paying $1,500 for a PlayStation 4. I kid you not. In Brazil, a PlayStation 4 goes for roughly $1,500 US. That's due to all the tariffs. Can you fucking imagine? So, not only do you not have a massive middle class to be able to afford that, it's certainly not going to be an entry-level machine for a family that's struggling to make ends meet. I was one of those families. I remember growing up in Canada quite poor. And it's one thing to be poor in a poor country. It's a whole other thing to be poor in a developed country. And I remember the envy that I had. Friends had Atari 2600s and Commodore 64s. And damn was I envious. Well, what's this going to do for the Brazilian population? I'm sure there's other ways. Maybe they can purchase it abroad, smuggle them in. I'm sure there's a gray market. you know, the Craigslist equivalent or some kind of gray market for Brazilians. What I'd love to hear is if there's anybody from Brazil watching this, let me know. I'm really, really curious what you guys do to get electronics if it's that fucking cost prohibitive. There's got to be a way, because I know when I played World of Warcraft, I had quite a few people in my guilds that were playing, you know, that were from Brazil. So you guys are obviously not starved for electronics. You have access to them, but how are you doing it when they're $1,500 for a PlayStation 4? That's almost 3.5 times the amount that we're paying here. That's significant. In similar news, on the topic of Nintendo, that is, Nintendo has seemingly discontinued the 3DS. And what do I mean by that? Well, here in Canada, we have what's called a Boxing Day sale. And Boxing Day for us in Canada, and I believe in England as well, because that's really where the holiday originated, is, you know, traditionally the day that you box things back up and pack them away for the next holiday season. But here in Canada, it's become almost like a Black Friday. Or rather, it hasn't become, it's always been pretty much since the 70s and 80s. As long as I can remember, Boxing Day has been like a Black Friday. It's a day where companies like Future Shop and a company here on the west side of Canada called A&B Sound. A&B Sound used to be synonymous with Boxing Day sales. And they'd have door crasher sales, you know, those items that if you were stupid enough to wait in fucking line for 24 hours, you could get yourself, you know, a TV that's $1,500 for $300. But there's probably half a dozen of them. That builds up the hype and the hysteria for people to come on in. And then once you get them in, obviously most of those door crashers are gone. But you've created that hysteria. You got people milling around a store. That impulse vibe to buy is so strong when you've got other people around, like piranhas, you know, sharks in water with blood, that regular sale prices like 20 and 30% suddenly seem so much more attractive because of that herd mentality. And anyways, this Boxing Day sale, 3DS XLs had a huge price drop here in Canada. So they're regularly $199. They were $60, $70 off. You could find them $129 and $139. And come to think of it, I haven't seen regular 3DS versions, like the non-XLs, haven't seen them. I've seen 3DS XLs, but even those, I've seen a lot less stock on shelves. And the word from other retailers and in the States is that original 3DS units are almost impossible to find because Nintendo is winding down production in anticipation of the new analog nub 3DS models. So what does that mean? Well, it means that they're probably going to start phasing out the 3DS XL and the 3DS regular models almost completely as they move production to the new units, which kind of pisses me off, guys, because I was one of the people who bought this. This is the Circle Pad Pro for the 3DS XL, called the 3DS LL. And really, that had an analog stick on the right, kind of like the new 3DS units, although this one mirrors the analog stick that comes on your existing 3DS XL unit. The analog nub on the newer ones is kind of smaller and honestly, to me, doesn't look as good. How does it feel? I don't know. That'll probably be pretty subjective to people, and I'll find out because I'm probably going to buy one. But it kind of amazes me how Nintendo, I wouldn't say, I mean, they're constantly innovating. You could look at it that way. The other way you could look at it is it's almost like Nintendo punishes first adopters, right? So who are the people who are going to buy a new console from Nintendo when it first comes out? Mostly the hardcore people. And yet those are the same people that usually get the short end of the straw when invariably a year later Nintendo releases the XL or the model with the extra analog stick. So if you're a first adopter to Nintendo, you usually get shafted, but being hardcore and a first adopter, you usually don't care too much. I know it's not a huge issue for me. I bought the original 3DS, I bought the 3DS XL, which I still love, and I will probably buy one of the nub versions, because when you use this CirclePad Pro with a 3DS XL, you basically are prevented from using a lot of other peripherals. For example, there's some awesome battery expanders. Well, those battery expanders don't work with this, sitting at the bottom of your 3DS XL. So having a new 3DS come out, like a new 3DS XL, with that stick, I'll be happy to retire the CirclePad Pro and be able to buy, because Nyko's going to come out with an extended battery. And to me, that's really the main complaint I usually have, is battery time on these devices. And I usually always buy Nyko's battery type expander. Speaking of Nyko, they have a device, and I'm going to slip a picture of this in, but they have a device called the Data Bank, which is, it reminds me, for anybody who's super old, like I am, the Amiga 500, which was desktop computers that a lot of my guys my age in North America had. It was a 16-bit PC, and it looked like a Commodore 64, which is even older, in that it was all in one. So you had everything kind of built into one unit, and it was a computer keyboard, right? And you'd plug your TV or monitor and your joysticks into the base unit. But it was basically the keyboard held all the brains, the CPU and the GPU, all right? Well, it had a utility for it called the A20, which was basically flush, with the contours, and it was a sidecar. You attached it to the side, made your Amiga 500 much wider, but added hard drive capability. That's what this data bank from Nyko looks like, except picture looking at the top of your PS4, and again, I'll put a picture in here. It's a sidecar that basically sits on top of the left side of your PlayStation 4. What does it do? It allows you to add an external hard drive. So right now, you're basically limited to internal hard drives, and unlike the Xbox One, you can't install or add external hard drives. Well, with this data bank unit, you're going to be able to add a much cheaper internal hard drive. So suddenly, $50 for a 4 terabyte internal SATA drive is going to be something you can do. Estimates are that the unit is going to be approximately $30 to $50. I know that's a bit of a price swing, but that's what my research has shown. So $30 to $50 for this unit when Nyko releases it. In other news, Sony is finally going to pull the trigger on PlayStation Now subscription service. And this is that streaming service that they've talked about, and now it all fucking makes sense. And it's bugged my liver forever that backwards compatibility seems to be something that none of the console makers care about anymore. And I'm somebody who's always enjoyed backwards compatibility because I have large game libraries. Whether it's there or not, does it really bug me? No, because I still have my PlayStation 3 right behind, or actually right above, my PlayStation 4. So it's just a matter of inserting the disc. But having one unit as opposed to two cluttering up a desk just always made much more sense to me. Was it worth the extra money for me? Yeah. I'd gladly pay a bit of a premium to have backwards compatibility, especially if that backwards compatibility added features like upscaling, AAAF, smoothing, some kind of feature which for the last few generations were included, like playing an original PlayStation 1 game, for example, or a PlayStation 2 game on a PlayStation 3 that had backwards compatibility was a better experience than playing it on the original PlayStation 1 or 2 console because of the upscaling and the smoothing, in my opinion. Of course, there's emulators, so when it comes to PlayStation 2 nowadays, I don't really care because I prefer to play my PS2 games on a PC because I can play them in 1080p with cranked AA and AF. Same with GameCube and Wii first generation games. I'd much rather play them on the Dolphin emulator because, again, Xenoblade Chronicles, playing that game at 1080p with all the eye candy turned on, no fucking comparison. No comparison to playing it on an actual Wii, which is still pretty, but a bit of a pixelated mess. especially compared to playing it on Dolphin with the eye candy turned up. So this subscription service is going to be their answer to backwards compatibility. So no longer do they have to hold the hardware cost. In fact, it becomes a way to make money, because for $20 a month, or as part of a 3-month package for $45, you have access to a library of roughly 100 PlayStation 3 titles at launch. So, is that going to be good? I don't know, but we will find out. What have I been playing? Well, the last couple of weeks I've spent a lot of time on GTA 4 again. Some of you know I beat that game earlier this year. We have a mom and pop store up here called Willow Video, and unlike Gamestop/EB, which takes $5 off of a used game, these guys usually price used games at half the price of a new, sometimes even 60% off. I saw GTA 5 for the PlayStation 4 for $24.99 when it's still going for $59 to $69. To me, that was a no-brainer. I wanted to try the first-person stuff out, bought the game, and I'm loving it. I'm loving psycho-ass fucking Trevor all over again. Man, that guy, what a fucking lunatic. But the kind of lunatic you can get behind. And remember, it's escapism, people. It's fucking fantasy. Are we really wanting to be homicidal maniacs like Trevor? Fuck no. Is it fun to play a homicidal maniac like Trevor? Fuck yeah. It is absolutely a blast. And no matter how nicely you dress Trevor, try to put that fucker in a pinstripe suit. After switching from another character, invariably, what do you get when you switch back to Trevor? You get Trevor and his fucking Ginch in the middle of nowhere, having just recently committed some super heinous crime. I just love that. I love that character. There were misogyny accusations and all kinds of stuff, but it's a fucking game, people. It's escapism. It's fun. And that's where GTA 5, to me, delivered. And it was one of the first GTA games in a long-ass time that I actually took the time to beat. And this time through, not only am I doing the main storyline, I'm doing a lot of the side missions, and I'm having a fucking blast. Other stuff I'm playing, Endless Legend and Endless Space. I don't know how those games slipped by me the first time, but I'm a PC junkie, so, well, fuck, face it, I play everything. Whether it's PlayStation 4, Xbox One, 3DS, Vita, PC, Master Race, whatever. I'm a gamer. I like them all. But I'm also a bit of a sucker and a bit of a chode and a bit of a chump for Steam sales. And usually when Steam sales come around, well, guilty as charged, I usually end up buying games. 2 of them that were on sale this year for Christmas Steam sale were Endless Legend and Endless Space. They are 4 times games, and on the spot I'm going to fucking forget, but it's basically exterminate, conquer, expand, produce, or mine, something like that. Anyways, it's a 4X game like Galactic Civilizations, like Master of Orion, any of those games, with a bit of a twist. The Endless Space feels unlike any other 4 times I've played before. Sure, there's the usual basics. You've got your technology tree, you've got your combat, and your take over the galaxy. But the art style and the flow of the game is really unique. And I urge any of you guys, if you get a chance to find that game or pick it up on the cheap, give it a shot. But even better, in my opinion, than Endless Space is Endless Legend. There are a couple of fantasy strategy styles that I like. I love the Heroes of Might and Magic style, where you have the lone hero that walks around and, conquers things, and you kind of got your armies. I like the Civilization style, where you're worrying about tech trees. The Age of Wonders, which is kind of a little bit of those both, right? It's a little bit Civilization, it's a little bit Heroes of Might and Magic. I love Age of Wonders. Endless Legend comes along, and it's a little bit of all 3 of those, with a super unique art style. I really, really love the art style. And I'll probably do a bit of a late review on this game, or maybe, some kind of a let's take a quick look at the game, but the art style is amazing. When you zoom into the map, like the default view, it looks like almost like any other 4x game. But immediately, and in terms of like the layout, but the art itself just hits you right away. There's nothing out there that looks quite like Endless Legend. When you zoom all the way out, it goes to, and let's see if I have one here. I do. So let's take, this is Forgotten Realms D&D, which is going to illustrate my point super quick, is the map. So it goes from a typical type view, and then when you zoom out on Endless Legend, it almost goes to this style of a fantasy map, like you used to play in Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. Here's probably a better view, with the hexes showing. So it's got a really, really cool, unique art style. So when you zoom out, you get that old school RPG look and feel, which just makes the world seem that much more fantastic and large of scale. So highly, highly urge you guys, if you can grab Endless Legend. If you can only get one of the two, get Endless Legend. If you can get them both, or maybe you like sci-fi more, definitely get Endless Space as well. Alright? And then the other game that I play at night, my kind of ritual, is I usually read a little bit before I hit the sack. I read about 30, 45 minutes on whatever novel I happen to be going on, which right now is Peter Hamilton. I can't remember what the series is called, but it's the Reality Dysfunction is the book I'm reading. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic space soap opera, or space opera, like a Star Wars. Peter Hamilton can write civilizations, he can write worlds and cultures like nobody else. Fantastic. And then the other thing I usually do is I'll play 20 to 30 minutes on my handheld, either the Vita or the 3DS XL. And right now I have Persona Q, which is Etrian Odyssey meets Persona. In terms of the engine, it's Etrian Odyssey, but Persona characters. Characters from Persona 3 and 4, and you can pick either of those. Fantastic. Just a fantastic game. Strongly recommend that if you can find it for the 3DS. It's out, as of the last few weeks. Anyways, as always, guys, cheers. Love to hear your comments on some of these. Again, if you're a viewer and you happen to be watching from Brazil, I want to know what the scoop is. Is that all bullshit? Is it really 3 times the price? Sounds like it's pretty bad for Nintendo to actually pull out. Also want to know what games you guys have on the go. Maybe got some good ideas for me. Anyways, guys, as always, cheers.